It's widely acknowledged that the Toyota Prius changed the automotive world, and here for 2023, Toyota has made substantial changes to the Prius. It is the best looking Prius by far. It's also the most powerful and the best handling, yet it still gets terrific fuel economy. Get in, it's time for Family Wheels. I have a lot of experience driving a Toyota Prius. My wife and I owned a 2004 Prius, and we had it for 14 essentially trouble-free, very economical years. No, it wasn't the most exciting car to drive, and that's all been fixed now in this generation. But this is true to the Prius ethos of the hybrid drive, Toyota hybrid drive, and great fuel economy and practicality. But now the vehicle simply looks great and handles so much better than the previous one, and it has much more power. What's not to like? The aerodynamics of the 23 Prius are very efficient, thanks in part to this steeply raked windshield. What is this, a McLaren? However, there is a bit of a problem. Lean the windshield back that far and you can affect the ingress, that is, getting into the car. For quite a few motorists, there is the issue of the noise from a continuously variable transmission. I have driven other CVTs and hybrid CVTs that make less noise than this when you punch the pedal on the right. Rear window visibility is pretty limited, quite narrow space to look through. Also, no rear window wiper. Our old Prius had one. Why doesn't this one? And its cargo space is less than the previous Prius, although still competitive. More about that in the cargo and family segment. But the points of criticism about this car are far outweighed by things to praise, so let's move on to those. The 2023 Prius is an amazing achievement, increasing the power so greatly, and yet keeping the Prius's legendary fuel economy. How do they do it? It's so much faster than the previous car, and it still uses less than 5 liters per 100 kilometers. You know, fully electric cars or even plug-in hybrids are not for everybody. But this vehicle, especially say if you take a lot of trips or you have a long daily commute, this could be the one to have. Every Prius has a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine with hybrid assist, HEV, that puts out a combined 196 horsepower. That's decent. Used to get a lot of body lean in our old Prius on on-ramps such as this. It's just a revelation that a Prius can be driven this way. All-wheel drive helps. And we feed in the power heading onto the highway. So it's not a sports car, but it's certainly not dull. At a highway cruising speed, the car is really quiet and smooth. This is a very slick car aerodynamically, so you don't get really any wind noise. You're getting very little road noise as well. Very comfortable layout here. Sometimes I've complained about Japanese cars having a seat pan or seat cushion that is too short. However, we have the 8-way adjustable power seat for the driver on both trims in Canada, and that also includes an option to just tip the front up a little bit and catch your leg, which really helps for those of us who are somewhat long of leg. Well, let's see how the TNGA-C platform handles our neighborhood bumpy road. I like that it's a firm ride, but it doesn't communicate all that much in terms of the nastiness underneath. So let's give the platform a pass in terms of bumpy roads. I like it. The Prius has always reveled in being just a bit different, and here in the cabin we have a completely different take on the gauge cluster. It's in what looks like similar to a touchscreen, but smaller up front, and it's quite a bit forward. You actually look over the top of the steering wheel. It is not a problem, but it is just a bit different. My compliments to Toyota for this HVAC control layout. It's all buttons, They're all sensible. It's not like just a fiddly mess of buttons. And best of all, you don't have to go down through a bunch of menus. It's really intuitive. Good piece of design there. One aspect of the center layout here that is just puzzling, because why? And that is the volume knob. I still am not touching the on-off and volume knob for the audio system. I've relied entirely on the volume knob over here. Here we have the top spec, the limited all-wheel drive. Got a fixed moonroof here. This does not open. Why doesn't it open? Probably because the headroom is so limited due to the swoopy design of the car. Ventilated front seats as well as heated front seats, heated rear seats, 360-degree monitor, which is very useful, the advanced parking system, and you can select camera angles and such up here, digital rear view mirror, driver seat memory, a 12.3-inch touchscreen as opposed to an 8-inch, which is standard, JBL audio, wireless charging, and a power liftgate at the back. Both trims come with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, an 8-way power driver's seat, and a heated steering wheel. The 23 Prius passes our child seat test, but only just. Behind me, the kind that takes up the most room, a rear-facing child seat. I'm 5 feet 11 inches tall, 180 centimeters, and up front there is just enough room between my knees and the glove box door. There is adequate room for adults in the rear seat of the Prius, certainly plenty of legroom, only just enough headroom, however. As far as niceties go, at this trim level we have heated seats and 2 USB-C ports. The rear seat also gets its own moonroof. I wouldn't call it panoramic. If it went any farther back, it would make the headroom situation even worse. The 2023 Toyota Prius. So many changes, and yet at its core, still a Prius, and that's a positive thing. But what do you think? Leave a comment. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for liking, and thanks for subscribing. I'm Richard Detman, and I'll see you next time on Family Wheels.